Hi everyone, and welcome back to our Civ 6 series with Nader Shah. And today we are on episode 4.
Yes, and last we left off, we conquered all of the Mongolian cities. And I think today it is time to pivot to a culture victory. So that is what all these pins are here for. As you see, I changed up the plan a little bit because I realized I'm going to need more space in my high production capital city for other wonders. And here, these cities actually don't look super useful, but we did get the Great Bath from the warfare, right? Is that the Great Bath?
Yeah. Stay clean.
Yeah, stay clean. And I think because we're going to be pivoting to culture, our conversation is going to focus a little bit on great people, right?
Yeah, that sounds good. So last week we ended off talking about Omar Khayyam right here.
He is the next scientist that is up. But I don't think it's worth trying to get him. I have 0 science points, so probably not.
Yeah.
And who was the other great person that's in the game?
We also talked about Rumi, Mevlana.
And for dedication, I thought about free inquiry, which could be the right choice here, honestly. But I just didn't build enough commercial hubs. I have one here. I'm building one here. I mean, it would be 8 science right away. But I think instead, I'm just going to go with monumentality. It's always really helpful to have cheaper builders, use our faith for something.
That's true.
And also, I was thinking then, how do I get more science? A hero may help with us there. Anansi. Yeah, Anansi is still available, just 2 turns. So I think that's how we're going to get our science fast enough to get to flight. So let's start with keeping this city. So in the Civlopedia about Rumi, which we can see here, it says here, often misquoted and mistranslated. Now that is a reference to something that is pretty well known in the Iranian studies world, right?
Yeah, it's pretty well known. There was a New Yorker article about it, 2017. A writer named Rosina Ali wrote about it. Essentially, sort of like the situation with Omar Khayyam. As we know, Edward Fitzgerald, not Edmund Fitzgerald, Edward Fitzgerald.
Yep, whoops.
Translated some of Omar Khayyam's poems, but it was pretty much an original interpretation. No, luckily for us, Edward Fitzgerald, I would say, was a pretty good poet. So, what he produced was of some artistic merit.
His own original work, basically.
Yeah, it has very little relation to Omar Khayyam's work. For the most part, we don't even know if they had any relationship to Omar Khayyam's works. And sometimes when you have like very great poets and they do these kind of things, you kind of forgive them a little bit because they produce something of value. Right, like Ezra Pound is another example. Was translating Chinese, did not know Chinese at all. He just looked at the characters and got the meaning of the characters generically.
What does that mean? Do you need to know Chinese to be able to read the characters?
Well, obviously, poetry, it's about sound, it's about pronunciation, it's about rhythm. He didn't know any of that. He just knew the bare meanings of the characters from a dictionary. But he produced poems that are pretty nice, actually. They're nice poems, but they're not translations. So the translator for Rumi, similar situation, does not know Persian at all, but he's kind of made his career translating Rumi.
And who is this translator?
Coleman Barks.
Yep.
There's 2 criticisms of it. The first is that, okay, if you don't know Persian, you're really missing out on an enormous aspect of Rumi's poetry.
Imagine not knowing the language you're translating. How, like, the audacity.
And maybe in 100 years, we'll look at Coleman Barks the same way we look at Edward Fitzgerald and say, oh, wow, those are nice original works. But
Edward Fitzgerald knew Persian.
Yeah, he did study Persian at Oxford, and Sanskrit.
So that's kind of helpful.
Yeah, Coleman Barks does not know Persian at all, so that's an issue. Second issue is that he's coming at it from a Protestant background. He does not know... He has a kind of generic sense about Sufism and about Islam, but it's not any kind of detailed knowledge about it. Because of that, he essentially removes all references to Islam, God, the Prophet, from Mevlana's work.
Right. And I think that's what people have written about recently, right?
Right, because this poetry, the Masnavi, right, is spiritual poetry, right? It's poetry about relationship to the divine. And for example, people often translate desire or love in the poetry as sexual desire, sexual love. Okay, you can read it this way, but most of the people who are reading Rumi in its context read it as love of God, right? As the love of between mankind and the divine.
Right. And Omid Safi has written a pretty good book about the concept of divine love and the beloved as God. So thankfully, I just got some Diplo points to use here. I don't know if I want to use it or if I want to sell it. I think I'm just going to sell it. I want money. And actually, so city center and I get culture bombs.
But the supporters of Coleman Barks will say that Rumi is now the most popular poet in the world.
That's true.
Right?
I think he's one of the most sold, right?
One of the most sold, yeah, these kind of, translations of Rumi are some of the most sold books of poetry in human history. So the question then becomes, well, how many people have been led to read Rumi's original works or been inspired to learn Persian, been inspired to do stuff through Coleman Barks' poetry?
What do you all think about that argument? I'm interested to see if others agree, because on one hand, it is true that people know Rumi, but can it all be attributed to Coleman Barks or Rumi's own work?
Right.
I mean, personally, this is going to sound horrible, I am not that into poetry. My friends, I have two friends who love poetry, sit and translate Persian poems all the time in our group chat, and I'm just like, that was nice. Nice. But I mean, according to people who do like poetry and read it, it's very good on its own merits.
Yes. It's inspired thousands of other poets in the mystical order of the Mevlavis, and yeah.
People who like poetry like it.
Yes.
So we highly recommend it.
Yeah. And we'll post some translations that are recommended.
So in many ways, Rumi is the obvious choice for a great person.
Yeah.
And we don't have any issue with it.
No objection.
No objections. Yeah. We have no objections with that choice. But there are just so many great Persians, not to be chauvinistic about
Which
this.
is so great.
They're just so great. So we thought we would talk a little bit about some of the other options they could have had. I think with Omar Khayyam, he's great. He's awesome.
He's great. He's a classic.
But there are other choices we have as sort of suggestions to what people can look up.
So in Civ 6, as a great artist, they have Behzad. And we talked about him last episode, I think. Briefly.
Because he's coming later. He's between Timurid and Safavids.
Yeah, he's considered to be one of the greatest painters of the
late 1400s.
Mm-hmm. And because of his paintings, became so well known as a model for miniature painting, book illustration. Because of that, painters in the Ottoman Empire, in the Mamluk period, they'll look to Behzad as an example of painting. And in Civ 5, actually, they had a interesting choice as well, alongside Behzad. They had Bahman Kermanshah.
Oh, I don't know if they had Behzad in Civ 5.
They did, I saw.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I saw. He is actually a 19th century painter from the Qajar period. It's really interesting because Qajar art for a long time did not get its due. People thought it was ugly. But then when you actually look at it, there's the most interesting paintings, But in recent decades, Qajar art has really been reappreciated for its original qualities. It's very inventive use of space and layering and pattern. It just has a very unique, very strong aesthetic. So I'm really happy they put that in there.
Yeah, I think we're more of the sense that we like seeing the obvious choices there, because when we see the obvious choices, we understand. I think it makes a lot of sense to have Behzad, for example. But we love seeing the less obvious choices as well, because that means people will learn about the sort of Qajar painting, which has been, like we said, very what?
That's so rude.
Good thing I didn't sell my Diplo points, because I totally forgot. Oh no, it passed. 5. She put 5 points.
Well, she just announced us. So.
Oh no, ridiculous. Okay, well, hopefully she's not gonna come too hard at me, but I get all my luxuries back. Let me make sure I sell this, I guess, for nothing. That's so frustrating. I did wipe out Mongolia, but to be fair, historically, they did the same to me.
Yeah. Yet another case of the British meddling in Iran.
Yeah, which is why we put the British there, if anyone was wondering.
Yeah.
They're quite meddlers.
Yeah, do you want to say about Da'ijan Napoleon?
Oh yeah, there's this amazing book, and it's translated really well, called Uncle Napoleon.
Yeah.
And it's all about the paranoia about British meddling in Iranian affairs. Highly recommend it.
Right, it's like this uncle, and then he just imagines the British are behind every minor problem in his life.
Like we said, we love to see more contemporary stuff like Uncle Napoleon in games like this, because when Orientalism became a field of study, or Orientalist studies, there was this conception that anything that had Western influence is bad. And so when the Orientalists go to places like Iran and they see their own impact on the culture there, they think that, well, before we came here, the culture was sort of traditional and it stood still, and it's through modernization that Iranian culture has become like stale and unoriginal. And so that's why Qajar art has had so little attention, because of the people who studied it in the West gave it so little attention. But as you see with Qajar art, it's quite interesting and it's quite well received in Iran itself and by contemporary scholars. That's why we have a list of, you know, maybe more contemporary great people they could add to this game.
Yeah, if they do a Civ 7, they can add them, hopefully.
Yeah, so who are your recommendations for Civ 7?
Well, I got a couple. For a great prophet, I know prophets, they've added in a lot of people who are like religious philosophers, theologians. So Mullah Sadra would be a good example. He's a very, very important theologian of the Safavid period. For modern writers, two really great examples could be Sadegh Hedayat. He's a writer of The Blind Owl, and when I first met Sharon
Paisley.
Sorry, when I first met Paisley Trees, she said, "Oh, here's this book. It's called The Blind Owl. You know, you should read it." And then I read it, and it's like the most like psychotic, like
it's like a
psychofiction is what it's called.
Psychofiction. Yeah, it's amazing. Highly recommend. I sent everyone away, but I forgot to deal with the barbarian camp. I'll bring this guy back. Yeah, I really recommend it if you feel mentally strong enough to read it. This is for all the mentally sound people, because if you are not mentally sound, the book will take you on a wild ride. Yeah. So keep that in mind. I warned you.
I mean, that book is considered to be, I think, the masterpiece of modern Iranian literature.
Yeah.
In terms of poetry, in terms of a lot of things. She's also a filmmaker, an amazing filmmaker.
Forough Farrokhzadeh, who I believe her film, like it's, I think from, when would it be from?
60s maybe?
Yeah, her film from the 60s, This House is Black, is on YouTube, so you can go and watch it.
If you are mentally sturdy.
If you are mentally sturdy, again. But it's just such a masterwork in both poetry and filmmaking. I think it belongs on any film curriculum. It's just insanely good. Those two, I think, would be a really great addition for some modern or more contemporary period Iranian artists.
And then another thing we were thinking about was in terms of wonders, right? Because we have one wonder, Apadana, which again, I would say very respectable choice.
Fair enough.
But if you want to look about more early modern, more modern things, or Gandhi.
Yes. Okay, great. We finally met everyone. Excellent. And I am quite concerned about my city here. Samarkand, what are you doing? How do I get them on my side? I need envoys like yesterday.
Can we buy walls or buy...
We can't buy walls in Civ. In 2 turns I can get an envoy.
I only guess it's 3 though.
I think 3 is enough to crack their...
Okay.
Oh no, I'm concerned.
Can we get a unit in there, like an archer?
My units are so far. My only close enough.
Or buy a unit?
Yeah, let's buy a unit. I need my own man-at-arms. So let's see if Gandhi wants anything. Do you want iron? Oh, okay. Let me sell a luxury, maybe.
Yeah, sell all of these.
Not all these. Are you crazy? No one has money. Everyone's broke. A 63 isn't even enough. Are you kidding me?
Well, let's sell that for 118.
Sell both for 118?
Yeah.
No. Yes. Okay, let's try that. Okay. That's still not enough. Okay, next turn.
Yeah, hopefully we're okay.
Yeah.
So wonders.
Yes.
So if you want more early modern wonder, I think the obvious choice.
Hands down.
Hands down. In the center of Esfahan is Naqsh Jahan Square. And this is an enormous public square. Absolutely beautiful architecture, beautiful mosques, just a magnificent space. Extreme achievement of urban planning, architecture, engineering. I think when people imagine the intricacy of Persian architecture and the decorations and the colors, they're thinking about Naqsh Jahan.
Yep. Sounds like you're writing like a poem about Naqsh Jahan. Like, wow. Damn, you really love that place.
So that'd be one. I don't know what benefits it would provide. Probably culture.
Yeah, I think religion and culture at once and money. It should provide all. Because do you want to describe it a little bit? It has mosques, it has the entrance to the bazaar, it has it has 2 mosques, and it has the palace, and it's also a place that people played
Polo.
Yeah. I always call it Marco Polo for some reason. Okay, so Naqsh Jahan, hands down, is an obvious choice to include.
Yeah. Now, you suggested another choice, which may be more controversial. You suggested Golistan Palace.
Yeah.
Now, why is that?
Because I study the 19th century, and it's really significant for the 19th century. And I do think, okay, to some people, it may be a bit gaudy, but not to me. I like it. It's shiny.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's intricate. And I think it's a really significant historical site, but also aesthetic site. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit, it might be hard to narrow down into like a wonder, you know what I mean? Like the wonder image, because it's more of like a complex.
They did it with the Alhambra.
That's true. And there's certain parts of Golistan, like the Sun Tower built by Nasruddin Shah, which are very interesting to look at. We'll put a photo here. People say it's European inspired, but I've never seen a building in Europe that looks like this. It's very interesting, very Qajar. Oh my god.
Oh my god, this is ridiculous. Freaking England, I hate them.
What are we gonna do? Let's get the man-at-arms.
Man-at-arms gives me a lot more.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have bought that last turn. Okay, one more turn and I can flip them.
Okay. Ooh, last one more turn.
I don't know. I feel like each turn takes so long these days too. Like the further you get in the game,
Can we bait them with your worker maybe?
I don't want to lose a worker, but
Well, it's better than losing a city, right?
okay, I'll try to bait them. That's a good idea. Dr. Crow's learning to play the game.
We suggested one more if you want like a very modern wonder. I mean, they put in CN Tower, so why not?
Yeah, they put CN Tower in Civ 5.
In Civ 5, yeah. Azadi Tower in Tehran.
Or what was it called originally? Shahyad?
Yeah, it's called Shahyad Tower, I think.
Yeah.
It is very interesting, very beautiful.
Wait, this will finish it. This will finish theology.
Okay.
Oh my god. Okay, now I can flip them, right? Yes. Yes. Oh my god. Thank God for Anansi.
Oh my god.
I keep my city. I didn't even need to buy that man-at-arms.
That's good to have.
Good to have, yeah.
Azadi Tower is built by Hossein Amanat.
I think so, yes.
And it is a sort of like fluted geometric shape. The geometries are interesting. I think it was one of the first buildings designed by computer. And so it has this very interesting geometry and is now kind of the center point of Tehran. One of the center points. It's still kind of on the outskirts, but
yeah, I think it's a really iconic building. I don't think it needs any defense to be included. I feel like if we showed an image of it, most people who know the basics of Iran will recognize it. It's on the money as well.
Yeah.
A lot of protests happen in that area, revolutions, and it means Freedom Tower. So it has such enormous historical significance, even though it was built in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm done my wonder. I think faith is better so I can purchase more things faster. Gandhi hates me.
Wow.
Oh, and I forgot to renew my friendship. No. Can I do it now?
Well, at least Gandhi can't do much.
Oh, great. We get Petra.
Ooh, nice.
Amazing. So we've kind of forgot to talk about Petra in our Arabian series game, but it is currently in Jordan, south of Amman.
Yeah.
We were thinking of going to it. It's like 3 hours south of Amman, so it's like you have to be on a bus for 6 hours.
Yeah.
I guess that's not like the worst thing.
I really recommend watching the Carl Pilkington Idiot Abroad episode for Petra.
This is something Dr. Crow brings up all the time. Do you want to explain your little
so
joke?
he's staying in a cave across from the beautiful treasury building of Petra. And he says, well, I'd rather be here because I get to look at that and they have to look at me.
Yeah.
Which is, I think fair enough.
But it's the eternal question that, tell someone about that. What?
The eternal question. What? Huh?
Okay, let me try again. definitely like one of those questions that tells you what a person is like. Would you rather stay in Petra or, you know, any other nice building, or would you rather stay in the building across the nice building so you could stare at it?
Yeah.
And you are the type of person that would stay across, right?
I think so.
And I think I'm the type of person that would stay in the nice building, obviously. Maybe I can go pillage a little bit. I do have the scout here. I just don't think it's strong enough to withstand walls.
Yeah, probably not.
Do you want to join my war? I can't ask you to join my war. Never mind. Okay.
And if we're just thinking about the Seljuk time period, which is what we were talking about last episode, there's also a number of good choices. I don't know where you'd put him. I mean, you could put him in Great Writer, but he is Nizam al-Mulk, and he is the Great Vizier of the Seljuk period. So Nizam al-Mulk is the Great Vizier, both important in the history of political philosophy, as well as for the endowments that he founded, most particularly including the Nizamiya schools. These were schools that were founded in all the major cities of the Seljuk Empire, and so many people came out of these Nizamiya schools. So many scientists, so many important political figures, poets, theologians, and again, they're madrasas. We talked about madrasas in the Arabia series. They are notable because of that concerted program of school building. And he's also well known for creating a book of probably the height of this Mirrors for Princes genre, like Siyasat Name, the Book of Politics.
Yeah, but what is the Book of Princes genre?
Yeah, the Mirrors for Princes is a genre of ethical literature, political literature. It's giving advice about how to run the state. So the idea is that you're a young prince, you read it to both develop yourself and develop the country when you take control. You know, if you read it now, I mean, some of it may seem kind of like, you know, obvious advice, right? But also some of it seems, you know, very particular to its time period. But again, this is an educational tool, an ethical tool. So we want to start with the basics of how to cultivate being a good person. The idea being that that will then flow into the operation of the state. So Nizam al-Mulk, very important person. Again, I guess you put him in Great Writer for Siyasat Name.
Fun fact, I took a class called The Art of Governance. And we read all of these Mirror for Princes books, and we compared them and how they changed throughout time. And so Mirror for Princes is, you know, one of those things that is considered a Persian genre of writing, even though you'll find it in many languages.
Yeah, I find it in Turkish, Chagatai, Urdu. I mean, you'll find it in a lot of languages for sure.
Yeah, but the idea is that it comes from Persian concepts of kingship, and by Persian here we mean ancient Persian.
Another example of a great writer from this time period could be Nizami. And we talked about him a little bit when we talked about the way in which Khosrow II of the Sassanid Empire was turned into myth, turned into legend. And so Nizami writes a series of 5 poetic texts. Because it's 5 in Arabic, it's named Khamseh. So this becomes the name of the collection. Most of these texts become the classics of like epic romance literature. So if you know anything about Middle Eastern culture, Islamic culture, you've probably heard Layla Majnun.
I got a prophet that I didn't really ask for because the Ottomans are just too slow.
Well,
And I guess I took out one player. I guess I'll take a prophet.
Okay.
I don't have enough faith to defend it, and I'm spending my faith on other things. So I want to get a settler with the faith, but it's fine. We got a prophet. Right. I won't look a gift horse in the mouth.
Yeah, like the Trojans, I guess.
Exactly. Okay, I want to put down my building here, but I want to chop it out first. So I guess I'll put a few turns into a wall could be helpful, actually.
Nice.
Yeah, so the Nizamiya produced a lot of other great people you could include in this game.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have anyone else you'd like to name?
I would like to put in, for consideration, Attar.
Yes.
Parliament of the Birds is his most famous work.
Yeah, and one of my favorites growing up.
Yeah, and the idea is that there are, you know, these birds. It's an analogy for the human search for God, essentially, in the world. It's told through the story of these birds that get together, and they want to find the king of the birds, the mystical Simurgh bird.
It means phoenix?
Yeah, it's similar to a phoenix.
But not exactly.
Yeah, not exactly. So they go on this journey, and on the journey, most of them perish, right? They're struggling. But the idea is that this is an analogy for the struggle of human beings to find the divine in the world, right? So that's also from the Seljuk period.
So how does the Seljuk period end? Because I feel like that should be discussed.
Yes, so it ends two ways, well, three ways essentially. In the east, it is taken over by the Khwarezmian Shahs. Again, not too dissimilar, very similar kind of Central Asian, Khorasani sort of culture. In the west, in Anatolia, the Seljuks survive as these smaller states called beyliks, which are kind of like, warlord type states, but each of them has a court, they have a patron, they have these kind of things. And the largest one is the Sultanate of Rome, and that also fragments, and eventually you get the Ottomans come out of that. Then,
we really need to visit some Anatolian
yeah,
sites.
for sure.
Someone wrote a comment of like, Anatolia must be one of the most sort of culturally varied and historically significant places. And we have not given it its due despite living in Turkey. We always just go to the beaches.
Yeah, we definitely need to do more inner Anatolia.
Yeah, Sivas. Sure. We're coming to
next. Sivas. But the Khwarezm Shahs, essentially they make a big mistake. Genghis Khan sends some ambassadors to them, and they decide to kill the ambassadors. So then Genghis Khan destroys the Khwarezmian Empire, destroys most of their cities, and chases their Shah until they capture him and torture him and execute him in horrible ways. So
big mistake.
Big mistake.
Big, huge.
And the Mongols obviously completely take over Iran. And over time, the Mongol Empire is divided into quarters, and one quarter, the Ilkhanate, is centered in Iran. So all of the Mongol quarters sort of gradually kind of become acclimatized to that region in the...
I'm gonna get that settler, thank you.
So in the east, obviously, Kublai Khan, becomes very acclimatized to Chinese culture. And in Persia and Iran, the Ilkhanate becomes very, very acclimatized to Persian culture. Mm-hmm. They adopt Persian as the language of state, as did the Seljuks, as did every other dynasty before it. They very, very quickly enmeshed themselves in Persian culture. As we talked about, Persian was the lingua franca, so when Marco Polo went to Karakorum, they all spoke Persian. The Ilkhanate is a really interesting period. I mean, it has a very interesting artistic qualities because you have these sort of things that are being brought from Mongolia, being brought from China, even though there's a lot of destruction. For example, the city of Kashan, very important center for ceramics, is devastated by the Mongol conquest, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, new centers develop, right? Esfahan continues as a center, even though it suffered greatly during the conquest. It redevelops. Ray develops again. So all these sites, again, redevelop. Tabriz develops. There's actually a bit of a controversy recently. During Ilkhanate art, during the Ilkhanate period, it was very common to depict the Prophet Muhammad.
Right.
Visually. And, there was a controversy that broke out because, a professor showed it in class, showed an example from his Ilkhanate illustration. And for some contemporary Muslims, showing a image of the Prophet is sacrilegious.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, well, on one hand, this is a historical artifact.
Mm-hmm. And
right?
It's a class on art history.
On art history by a Muslim empire. The Ilkhanates convert to Islam.
Yeah, the professor was not Muslim.
Right, but the empire that produced it, the culture that produced it, is Islamic. Mm-hmm. It was drawn by a Muslim for a Muslim. So, the question becomes, well, is it that we can just ignore or suppress this stuff in the name of our contemporary sensibilities?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the important thing here is that while, there's certain factions and certain people that consider it to be blasphemous or sacrilegious, that's not always been the case, and it's not totally true today, right? There's many people and many sects that don't believe this. I think the issue is that it's become very black and white, and everyone has their opinions on it, but it's important to try to understand how other people are approaching it, so we try to be as understanding as possible when it's not our position and not our point of view. So we're not trying to make it this whole black and white issue. I don't like the term black and white. Is there a different word?
Manichaean.
Yeah, we're not trying to make it this Manichaean issue.
No offense to Manichaeans.
Yeah, I do think it's always important to try to include nuance. Could be controversial, and it is. Someone lost their job over it.
Yeah.
But it's also important to have these discussions.
Jobs are not easy to find.
Yeah. Okay, how do I really messed this up. I keep moving this guy back and forth. You come this way. I'm really losing my mind.
Okay.
Okay, wait, no, I should have changed this. Okay, I can change it. Yeah. And then next turn, I'm going to change my policies. So I think we're going to skip a lot of the Ilkhanid history because that was kind of our plan for our Mongol series coming up next.
Yeah, I don't know if we can talk that much about Yuan dynasty, but we can definitely talk about Ilkhanids. So we'll leave that for that series. We also will leave the successor dynasties to the Ilkhanids, the black sheep and the white sheep, because again, I mean, it's kind of condensed as part of it.
Yeah, otherwise we'll have nothing to talk about in our Mongolian series.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll leave that for then. There's two Turkic tribes, the white sheep and the black sheep, named after apparently the color of their sheep. But
shocking.
But the white sheep are brought to an end by a rising Sufi order, the Safaviya. We also have the Timurids, where again we'll save that for the Mongolian episode. Timur is not really Mongolian, but
he says he is.
He says he's he's the Amir for someone who's descended vaguely from. But we'll leave that because Timur is also very interesting person in the lineage, at least metaphorically, of Genghis Khan.
Yes.
And we'll leave the Timurids for that, again, because it's also a very, very interesting period. We will continue from the black sheep and the white sheep to the Safavid period afterwards.
Right.
This is considered the height of Iranian civilization.
Yeah, what did I get myself into here?
But, again, we'll talk about that. We're not into Golden Age thinking again. But I have to say, like Naqsh Jahan Square, Safavid stuff is pretty nice.
I like later stuff too. Don't fall for it.
Don't fall for it.
No, because we played like 10 turns, but I feel like the turns are taking so long. I have so many things to do.
Yeah.
I think this is gonna be. I think if you want to win a fast culture victory, you have to play every turn slow. So if I can win in 170, I'll be happy.
All right.
Okay, great.
Okay, see you next time, and make sure to leave a comment or a like below.
Yeah, let us know if you have any questions we can answer. We love answering questions.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.